Hola amigos. Today I want to start showing you some of the middle grade and young adult books that I have that represent Hispanic heritage. Some of these books I have read, some of the books I have not. I purchased them because I know they represent my Hispanic heritage, but I want to share those with you. I do have some more in my classroom, and when I get there, I'll show you some more books. So here's my first middle grade recommendation. This is A Friend Divided by Ernesto Cisneros. It is such an amazing book. I have read this book 2 times. So the story of a friend and how family is separated, mom being deported back to Mexico, and a friend experiencing visiting Mexico and experiencing culture shock. An amazing story that you students will be fascinated to read. Us in Progress by Lulu Delacre is by far one of my favorite stories, that if I can buy a class set for all of my ELLs or students at high school level, I will do that. Even for middle school, I will say this book is an amazing book that will show you stories, actual stories of immigrants here in the United States. Students will really see themselves in this story. So here is Estela Diaz, Never Gives Up. Of course, one of my favorite authors and illustrators, Angela Dominguez. In this story, we learn how we can make a difference when we put our minds to it. And we know we cannot do it alone, like Estela Diaz. She knows she cannot do it alone. She wants to make a difference, save the environment, and you will read her amazing journey. Definitely grades 3 and up. So here's a story I have not read yet, but I'm looking forward to read. Land of the Cranes by Aida Salazar. She's a fascinating author who, of course, has the passion to share her culture through literature. And I'm looking forward to read it just because it talks about family separation and what happens at the detention center with the family. It's something I want to read about, and I know that my students want to read too. So here's a story by one of my favorite authors, Angela Cervantes, Leti Out Loud. Leti alza su voz. And this one, it is personalized by the author for my students. Gracias, Angela Cervantes. In this story, we'll see how Leti does not let a grumpy classmate Hunter silence her voice. You will see how Leti's passion for what she loves comes through. Definitely grades 3 and up. So now I want to share with you about Francisco Stark's fascinating story. Start with Disappeared and then read on Illegal. And he talks about the story of this brother and sister who have to leave Mexico, and they tells the story of how they cross over to the United States and then what happens once they get here. You will be fascinated reading this story. Here is We Are Not From Here by Jenny Torres Sanchez. By far one of my most amazing young adults books that I have read. So 3 characters, detailed story of their journey from Guatemala to the United States, writing La Bestia. This is a story you want to have in your classrooms for your students to read. Absolutely. Now here's a story I'm reading right now, Sanctuary by Paola Mendoza and Abby Shear. I just started it, but it's so good, it's hard to put it down. Definitely a story that you want to read. Takes place in 2036, but there's so much that's happening in the book that I see happening right now. Yes, you want to pick up a copy and have your students read it, and you read it yourself. A book I am looking forward to read is Foodia. Oh my goodness, I am looking forward to read this novel by Jamile Mendez. In this story, of course, we'll read how passion and persistence for something that you love comes through. Of course, there's soccer, football mentioned, and that's something my students, even boys and girls, are fascinated with. So looking forward to share with my students. Here is Ordinary Girls by Jaquita Diaz. Now, this is a story that once you start reading it, you don't want to stop. So she tells her memoir, her story of how she came from Puerto Rico and now she lives here in the United States and everything she goes through. It is such an amazing story to read for young adults and adults as well. Here is The Book of Rosie, a mother's story of separation at the border. It is by Rosaida Pablo Cruz and Julie Colasso. You will be fascinated by Rosaida's story herself. She immigrates from Guatemala to the United States and she gives so many details about her journey. And then she tells her story about her and her children at the detention center. You want to read this book. Here is The Distance Between Us, and it's also available in Español, La Distancia Entre Nosotros, which one of my students is reading right now. But it is a memoir, and I have not read it, and I purchased it just because I know my students can identify with this story. Family separation, immigration from one country to another, and then the character gets to meet dad who she has not seen for a long time. So definitely you need to check it out.